Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into a full-scale digital house audit. We're drawing on some core CompTIA Security Plus concepts to completely rethink how we look at our networks and devices. Think of your digital footprint exactly like a physical house. I mean, a state-of-the-art alarm system is completely useless if you just leave a ground floor window wide open, right? So let's walk the perimeter, inspect the foundation, and double-check every single lock.
Let's kick things off with a quote straight from our source material that literally hits the nail on the head. Why do you need hackers if you have default passwords? It's a hilarious, but honestly terrifying point. We spend so much time sweating over sophisticated cybercriminals pulling off complex hacks, but more often than not, we're the ones leaving the front door wide open. We're practically handing them the keys.
Now, before we really get into the weeds of this audit, we need to define exactly what it is we're auditing. And that brings us to a huge foundational concept, your attack surface. Simply put, this is the broad spectrum of potential entry points and vulnerabilities across all your devices, software, and networks that an attacker could exploit. Going back to our house analogy for a second, the attack surface isn't just your front door. It's the front door, the back door, the windows, the garage, the basement hatch, heck, even the chimney. Basically, the larger your digital footprint, the larger your attack surface.
So here is the blueprint for today's audit. First, we'll look at defending your network connections. Second, software flaws and lifespans. Third, open ports and default keys. And finally, number 4, the modern Trojan horse.
Okay, jumping into part 1, defending your network connections, or securing the perimeter.
We have to recognize that different types of networks have completely unique blind spots. Take wireless networks, for example. Because they don't use physical cables, they're incredibly susceptible to eavesdropping and weak Wi-Fi exploitation. Wired networks, on the other hand, are generally considered much more secure. But, and this is a big but, without proper network segmentation, an attacker with physical access could just plug a malicious device, like a network tap, straight into the cabling. And then you have Bluetooth. This can easily be exploited if you leave your devices in discoverable mode, which opens you up to nasty threats like Blueborn, where malware can actually spread to control your devices.
So how do we actually lock down this perimeter? Well, first off, you absolutely want to use robust encryption, specifically WPA3 for your Wi-Fi. Next, implement network segmentation. That way, if one area gets breached, the whole network doesn't go down like a house of cards. You'll also want to deploy solid firewalls, enforce continuous monitoring to spot any weird anomalies. And, this is absolutely crucial, educate your users about the very real dangers of connecting to open, untrusted networks.
Moving right along to part 2, software flaws and lifespans, basically the structure of your digital home.
Think about it like this. Every piece of software you use is essentially built with digital bricks and mortar. Vulnerable software happens when there are flaws or weaknesses in that underlying code or design. It's literally a structural defect in your walls. Attackers are constantly prowling around looking for these exact weaknesses to exploit just so they can gain unauthorized access, disrupt your day-to-day operations, or launch other malicious attacks.
Now, there are 2 primary ways to monitor and protect your system against those vulnerabilities. First, you've got client-based security. This requires installing an agent directly onto the device itself. It gives you incredibly granular control, but, it's definitely more resource-intensive. On the flip side, we have agentless security. This centrally monitors everything through your network devices. It's got a much lighter footprint and is generally way easier to manage, especially if you've got a really diverse environment. Ultimately, the choice between the 2 depends entirely on your specific organizational needs and complexity.
But hey, what happens when the manufacturer just completely stops supporting the software? That brings us to EOL, or end of life. This is when software platforms or tools just stop receiving regular updates, security patches, or technical support. Maybe the version is just too ancient, or maybe the vendor actually went out of business. But without those updates, any known vulnerabilities are left completely unaddressed, turning those systems into prime sitting duck targets for cybercriminals. Oh, and here's a critical detail from our source. If you're a business in a regulated industry, using unsupported software can actually slap you with severe non-compliance penalties, including some pretty heavy fines.
So, to stop these unsupported systems from becoming the weakest link in your security posture, you've got to actively manage your software lifespans, maintain a really detailed software inventory, and make it a habit to regularly review the support status of every single tool you use. Obviously, the best fix is to just upgrade to a supported version. But if you absolutely must use a legacy system, you have to put specific isolating security controls in place to properly safeguard it.
All right, let's dive into part 3, open ports and default keys, the doors and locks of our digital house.
Our source material uses a truly perfect analogy for this one. Open service ports are network communication endpoints. When they're left accessible and completely unguarded, they act exactly like an unlocked door on a physical building. Just as an unlocked door lets literally anyone wander right inside, an open service port invites unauthorized access directly into your applications, or even worse, the underlying operating system itself. Attackers love exploiting these to gather intel, knock offline your services, or even take full remote control of your system.
The cool thing is, you can actually audit these digital doors yourself, right now. If you open up the Windows command prompt and run a super simple netstat-ANO command, it'll display all the currently existing network connections and open listening ports. It's a really fast, native way to see exactly what network endpoints are exposed on your machine at this exact second.
Of course, once you figure out what's open, you have to secure it. You should be regularly using professional port scanning tools. Think things like Nmap, which is a really powerful open-source tool for discovering hosts and services. Massscan is another one, really famous for its incredible speed. And then there's Netcat, a straightforward tool that handles port scanning, file transfers, and can even be used to set up backdoors to test your own defenses. Once you've done your scanning, use your firewall configurations to aggressively block any unnecessary ports. Also, implement continuous logging to sniff out suspicious activity, and make absolutely sure the services running on the ports you do keep open are patched up and completely current.
Okay, now we arrive right back at that incredible quote from the beginning about default passwords. Manufacturers of routers, switches, and other network devices frequently ship their products with super simple default credentials, fully expecting you, the user, to change them. But you'd be shocked how many organizations just leave them in place. Websites like defaultpassword.com or search engines like Shodan make it almost laughably easy for attackers to find these exposed devices floating around on the internet. And this whole mess is made so much worse by credential harvesting, where attackers dump massive lists of stolen usernames and passwords on platforms like Pastebin or GitHub. It makes compromising a system a total breeze for anyone who reuses credentials. You absolutely, 100%, must change default keys and make sure your passwords are unique and complex.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 4, the modern Trojan horse, or what we willingly bring inside.
I am talking about removable devices here. Portable storage like USB drives, external hard drives, memory cards, you name it. Sure, they are incredibly convenient, but they are literally modern Trojan horses. Picture this. An infected USB drive gets plugged into a completely secured, locked-down computer. Suddenly, that machine might inadvertently execute the malicious code hidden inside. In a flash, despite all your fancy network firewalls and software patches, you're suddenly dealing with massive data theft, a totally compromised system, or malware that's rapidly spreading to every single connected device on your network. To stop this, you have to tackle the threat of removable devices head-on. How? By implementing strict organizational policies that either restrict their use entirely or dictate exactly how and when they can be used. You've got to make sure any device that gets plugged in is immediately scanned with up-to-date anti-malware software. And, as always, it comes back to the human element. You have to educate your users about safe handling practices so they really understand why they shouldn't just plug in some random USB drive they found laying in the parking lot. Completing a thorough digital house audit like this really proves one undeniable fact. Real, true security requires absolute vigilance across your entire attack surface. It's a huge, interconnected web that stretches from the physical hardware you plug in to the software architecture you rely on every day, all the way down to the daily habits of the end user. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly important thought. We've given you the blueprint. We've shown you the unlocked doors, the structural flaws, and the modern-day Trojan horses. So I have to ask you, when was the last time you truly checked your own digital locks?